everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Sonia Siddiqui, and joining us again today is William Stewart from Equitech. Hi, William.
Hi, everyone. How are you?
Thanks, William. We're doing just fine, coming back after a long weekend. So to this great webinar, and William's been with us for a long time offering webinars, and he actually did a monthly webinar with us back in August, I believe. And so he's back for more due to popular demand. And before I hand it over to him, I just want to make sure that everyone is properly connected. So please note that you are all in listen only mode, so we won't be able to hear you, but William will be taking your questions towards the end of the presentation. So please type your questions into the Q&A tab. And for best results, please use a laptop or a desktop computer using Google Chrome as your browser. If you are using mobile devices such as your cell phones or your tablets, I recommend downloading the Zoom app. And there is a survey at the end of the webinar. Please do fill it out. Let us know how we can improve and better our webinars in the future. And all our webinars are always recorded. If you can wait, you can get the recording, I believe, in 2 days, or you can, a few hours after this webinar is over, the Zoom registration link turns into the recording. So then you can watch it anytime after the webinar is done. I'm going to tell you a little bit about ACCES. We've been around for over 30 years helping job seekers such as yourselves. Just in the past year alone, we were able to serve over 34,000 job seekers. We work with over 2,200 employers, sponsors, community partners, and we have over 30 tailored programs with new programs coming up all the time. And these include our sector-specific bridging programs, our pre-arrival programs, programs for youth, programs for women. So check out our website to find out more. And just a note that all of our programs are currently being held online. So take advantage of the lack of commute that's happening. I know we'd have a lot of people coming from one end of the city to the other end of the city, trying to commute, and it's not easy. So you can do this from the comfort of your own home, and we can help you get started with your job search. And we have over 7 locations in the GTA, but right now everything is being held virtually online. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that William can share his.
Great. Well, thanks, everyone. And happy day after Thanksgiving. I hope everybody had a happy social distance Thanksgiving. And great, perfect. So here we are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you about a few things. My name, of course, I'll introduce myself again. It's William Stewart. You can call me Will, and I'm the Director of Operations for a company called Equitech Employment Equity Solutions. And we're in the business of diversity. And this is important to you, especially if you're looking when you're job searching, because this represents an initiative that Canadian corporations have to find the best and the brightest, and they're actually looking to target individuals like yourselves. So this presentation, I'm going to talk to about the transition of equity, diversity and equity, so you understand the new business case for diversity in our pluralistic Canada, what Equitech is and the tool that it represents for you and how you can use it. And of course, why you came. It's for applying online and tips for navigating an applicant tracking system, which everybody seems to enjoy doing. But you know, it's rather tedious, but it needs to be done. So I'm going to give you the Coles notes on it and give you some examples and some tips on how you can get through the ATS to get into the call situation. So let's start. So let's not start. Okay. So the transition of equity and beyond compliance. So this is how employment equity started in Canada. And, you know, I'm going to give you a little background just to give you that knowledge so you understand in your thinking when when you're applying for the positions and when you're seeing this, you want to sort of be able to address this and know what position the company is coming from, because it gives you a bit of intelligence and helps you with that application process. So the history is, back in the 90s, the federal government of Canada identified 4 demographics of this country that face barriers to employment. And those 4 demographics are Indigenous people, people with disabilities, visible minorities, and women. Now, they created the Employment Equity Act in Canada, and that was to be able to address that, to make sure that people from these 4 groups, which we refer to as the 4 designated groups, that people from these 4 designated groups had an opportunity to apply for the positions. So companies had to do a little more than just, putting out a job posting on a job board or a newspaper ad or something. They actually had to go into the communities of the designated groups and invite these individuals to come back and apply for the jobs. It's important to understand that employment equity is not a quota system. Okay, it's not like affirmative action in the States. What it means is every hiring process is based on merit. So what it's trying to do is level the playing field, so candidates are judged on the merits of their education and their work experience to make sure the companies are finding the best and the brightest. So it involved mostly for companies to be able to go beyond their traditional recruitment and had to introduce an equitable employment advertising strategy. Now, the Employment Equity Act is an act, so it is more or less a law, but it could only apply to a small percentage of the companies in Canada, and those were, of course, the government, the crown corporations like Canada Post and Bank of Canada and things like that. And then, of course, there's a group of companies that are private sector companies, but they're the ones that are over 100 employees and do over $200,000 a year worth of business with the federal government. And those companies are called federal contractors. And they are also compliant to the Employment Equity Program, which meant that they have to make sure their jobs are going into the communities of those 4 designated groups and making sure that you had an opportunity to see them and apply for the jobs. So that happened during the 90s. And as you can notice, in every decade, something else happened. So in 2000, what happened, companies that weren't compliant to the Employment Equity Program, but they realized that Canada's population is changing. People are different colors, they're speaking different languages. And if you owned a company, you'd realize that your marketplace is changing. So in order for you to stay in business, you're going to have to find a way to be able to penetrate these new customers and be able to offer your products to them. And that's where you started hearing the term diversity, when companies are saying diversity, diversity. Now they throw the word out. It's almost nauseating. Half of them don't even realize they're saying it. When it comes out, you see it written everywhere. But what it comes down to when you think about diversity is these corporations, companies, everything from selling cars to selling hamburgers. It was realizing that we now have a new marketplace, new set of customers. Our customer market is shrinking, so we have to expand it. So we have to be able to find individuals who represent this new marketplace and these new customers, who understand their culture and speak their languages, so we can get our widgets in front of them. So when you hear the term diversity, it tends to lean towards the business case before, a company to be able to sustain itself and survive into the future. Something you might want to know about Canada is based on our last census, okay, Canada is no longer a multicultural population. A multicultural population tend to have one demographic as a majority. But now Canada, based on 2016 census, we have now a pluralistic society, which means we're a society of minorities. There's groups, they're all over the place, all over the country. Now, some of the minorities are more congregated together in one location, that being Canada, because the majority of our population anyway is around the Great Lakes. So, but overall, based on per capita over the country, Canada is actually just a whole bunch of groups of minorities. So it's important for companies to be able to, now that their marketplace isn't all one sort of demographic, now they're going to have to find ways to connect with all these different segments of the society. So that's what diversity means to them. Now in 2010, something else happened. The workforce inclusion, you started hearing about this new term, inclusion of workforce. And what that tended to lead to was the fact that Canada and many of the other G20 nations are in a very ugly situation right now. We're going to lose 7 million people from our workforce. The boomers are retiring. That's people like myself. We've now, we're over 60 years old. We're looking at, well, eventually we're going to have to retire because we can't keep up this pace forever. But companies are realizing now that there's nobody to replace them. See, you can thank the internet for this. That's my personal opinion. Previously, towards this online global economy that we have, companies used to treat their workforces like farmers treat a field. They would prepare a field and leave it alone, plant the seeds and leave it alone, then move on to another field and get it ready, and then they would harvest the third field. And it was like a secular event. And then what had happened when the internet came along, there was just so much information available to them, companies stopped preparing their workforce fields at all. And so what has happened is now we've come full circle and organizations are realizing that, wow, we really haven't done anything in the past to lay the groundwork for now. So now they're in a panic situation. Okay, and I'm going to show you some information about that in a second. So basically, these companies are faced in a tight situation of what they're going to do. And then finally, the last change that which we see just this summer, thank goodness, is the global call for change to face systemic racism. And this is what diversity and employment equity and all these things have really been about. Okay, it's about, it's a multicultural generational standing and change from around the world. And it represents more than just the four demographics of Indigenous people, people with disabilities, visible minorities, and women, but it also includes youth, mature, internationally trained professionals, Canadian veterans, LGBTQ2. So now they're all referred to as the underrepresented groups. So many people identify with these underrepresented groups that are now in the country. So it's more than the four. And, and it's basically, it comes down this. It's people from the underrepresented groups aren't asking for charity. They're not asking for companies to hire them because they're from one of the underrepresented groups. What they're asking for and should be demanding is the companies stop not hiring them because they're from the underrepresented groups. So this is the call for change, and companies are beginning to finally understand this, or they've understood it, but they were afraid to, didn't know how to address it, but now they're moving to address it. So it's going to be a whole new future for us going forward. So this graph pertains to the workforce inclusion that I was talking to you about the demographics. So on the right-hand side, you've got developing countries, and then the left, you've got developed countries. So the developed countries represent G20 nations. So here you are, you've got 0 to 4 all the way up. The majority of your demographics, see, the largest percentage of your population is young and healthy, and as they're growing older, they die off. So you look at your tax base, starting here with your working age, 19 to 59, for instance. That's the majority of your population that's right there. That's very nice and healthy because it's a system, that's a society that's able to sustain itself. So all that tax base is basically going through and paying for your social programs and things. So it's nice and healthy. You look to the left, this is Canada. So this is the situation we find ourselves in where, and this graph is a few years old. So starting just this graph at 25 to 29, majority of our population, it'd go to 60, 64. You can see that's the growth of our population. This has actually moved up. It's now more like 30 years old. So what happens is this bubble is going to move up, and eventually it's going to fall over and break. And that means our society's broken, all that beautiful healthcare and everything that we value so much in Canada. So companies are now working as hard as they can to have this represent like to the right and fill out these areas as much. Even if Canada had increased its immigration numbers by 3 times, it's still not going to, we're still going to fall short because we're also facing competition from the other Commonwealth countries, Australia, the UK. They're also in the same situation in advertising for talent as well. So when you hear, workforce inclusion, that's what they're looking at. It's the future workforce needs. So even if a company, as I told you, sorry, even previously, even if they increase their numbers by 3 times, they're not going, their immigration numbers by 3 times, we're not going to be able to make it. We have to make better use of our underrepresented demographics. We're lucky in Canada because we do have a number of individuals and a lot of talent within these under demographics that companies are going to have to do a better job to farm and attract. And that's where we are now. Okay. So now you're a pro on diversity. So when you see these things, employment equity, when you see a company in their advertisement and they say, we support employment equity, you know they're a federal contractor. If they're talking about diversity, you know that this is an organization, they're thinking more about sustaining their business into the future on the new marketplace. If they're talking about inclusion, okay, you know that, okay, it's a workforce issue, that they're looking for talent. They need that talent to sustain their company and move forward. And then, of course, you'll see a lot of them talking for call for change. So those are the organizations that are realizing that we have to address systemic racism within our organization. And the best way to do that is to be able to find diverse candidates directly from the communities where they are and have them come and apply for jobs at our site. Now, what does Equitech do? So as I told you, remember those organizations, all 3 of them, it doesn't matter if it's employment equity, diversity, or inclusion, the common denominator is that all 3 require these companies to go outside of their typical advertising strategy and go into the communities of those underrepresented groups and invite people to apply for the jobs. How do they do that? They use Equitech. That's exactly what we do. As Sonia had mentioned to you, Equitech and ACCES have had a 30-year relationship, and we are a job feed specifically from these companies' applicant tracking systems where they post their jobs. We get a feed from the ATS and we stream the jobs directly to ACCES, to your employment programs, and to you as well. And I'll show you how that works. So it comes directly from the company's applicant tracking system. Every day we're broadcasting new jobs. Even during COVID, we have about 2,500 new jobs coming your way every morning. So I'm going to show you how that works. Now, before I go in to show you our site, you're going to ask yourself, well, what's the difference between Equitech and another job board? Well, Equitech is not a job board. It's actually a job feed. I'll show you how it works. But the big difference is this. Job boards are fee per advertisement. So if a company is advertising a job on a job board, they have to pay for that job, which is normally about $300. Job boards are great. I'm not asking you to stop using them. I'm going to tell you this service is another tool that's specifically intended for you. The difference here is because we're connected to the applicant tracking system, we get all the jobs. When a company has to put a job on a job board and paying $300, they're not putting all their jobs on the job board, but they put all their jobs on their ATS. With Equitech, they're a subscription based. That means they pay 1 fee a year, and we connect them directly to the ATS, which means you're going to see jobs that you're probably not going to see on some of the job boards. As well as Equitech serves as that one point of reference where you can come and you can see the newest jobs from all of these companies every single day, instead of having to go to every one of these companies' site, which will take hours, of course, to do it. So I'm going to show you how our site works. Okay, and we are going to, where to go? It's supposed to be here. Excuse me, I'll be back in a sec. Okay, I'm back. Here we go. And so here's our site, Equitech. This is very easy to navigate. You don't need to register. You don't need to sign up. You don't need to do anything, really. Anybody can come to this site and use it. So if you're looking for a job, you'd simply click on Find Jobs. Read the information we have headers for job seekers, employment counselors, because primarily we work with employment counselors. But since COVID-19, there's an opportunity for job seekers to sign up to receive our broadcasts as well. But I'll go into that after I show you that. And then, of course, you can simply browse jobs. Okay, and then these are our 3 platforms. Connected is the job feed. We have search by categories, which is just a list of general categories. Now, these are not the companies that are in here. It's dictated by the jobs they advertise for, not the industry they're in. So you'll see companies in different areas, but the objective for companies is try to be in as many of the categories as possible because it mirrors the type of jobs that they're looking to apply for. So you would just simply click on, a category, for instance, and these are all the companies that would have administrative positions that you're looking for. And then you would have to click through here. Let's see, City of Brampton, for instance, one of our longtime clients, City of Brampton. And you go to employer profile page, the City of Brampton, and it talks about their diversity initiative. Now, this is a message directed to you, so you should read it. Don't skip over it. You can read it because there's application instructions. And in particular, application instructions at the bottom, being able to identify where you saw the job. You've seen that when you're applying online and you're filling out your profile of the company's applicant tracking system, and it asks you, where did you see the job? Well, it's really important to be able for you to be able to dictate, or rather indicate where you saw the job, because your resume ends up in that folder. So if you say I came through in LinkedIn, click, you're going to be in with 50,000 people from LinkedIn. If you say I came from Equitech, clicked on it, you're going to go into their diversity recruiting initiative, which is where you want to go, because that's an initiative specifically set up for you, where you're going to reach recruiters that are specifically tasked for that company to do their diversity recruiting. So they're very familiar with internationally trained credentials. They know you're coming here. They know you're new here. And so they're trying to attract you. And these are the individuals that you're trying to connect with. So don't be so careless when you fill out that profile and just say, oh, I'm going to go with Indeed or whatever. Just remember, that's going to be, you're going to, don't be a sheep and follow everybody. You want to swim against the stream, right? So find the best play to get in that smaller talent pool. And then, of course, the link at the bottom will take you directly to the City of Brampton's applicant tracking system. So let's go back. Now I'm going to show you our job feed, Connected. Now Connected, and one more is just search by employers, and that's an alphabetical listing of our employers if you need to, but that's listed a bunch of places. So it's these two are really the primary. Connected is the daily job feed. This will take a second to load because there's so many different feeds. So this is what you're going to be coming for, and this is what we give you a link to. So today we're featuring Stantec. Oops. Okay, so here we go. Stantec, and these are all the Stantec jobs that come through. Every client gets featured this on the broadcast, and then it falls through into alphabetical listing. So as you can see, what we're doing here is, let's go down a bit. Let's see, Canada Post, who are those? You'll see, you take your time and go through this. There's a lot of organizations here, a lot of unique companies too. We have everything from administrative positions to to works at Zymeworks, which is a pharmaceutical corporation. We even advertise for spies with our information security establishment. So there's a lot of different jobs here. So for instance, keeping with the City of Brampton, so here are the most recent employment opportunities. And this is what Connected is. It's just the most recent jobs, okay? Because there's so many jobs, we're not gonna do all of the jobs. So in this case, the most recent job would be supervisor of maintenance and operations, City of Brampton. You simply click on the link and it takes you directly to the job posting on their ATS, their ACCES ATS. So there you would apply for the job through here and you go directly through the applicant tracking system at the company. You've left Equitech, so now you're filling out your profile with the City of Brampton to apply for this job, being sure to identify Equitech as the source of where you saw it. If you can't find Equitech, you click the drop down, where did you see this job, and Equitech isn't listed there, click other, but be sure to indicate Equitech in the cover letter. But I'll go into that with you in a second as well. Okay, so now you might be thinking to yourself though, if you're looking at City of Brampton, for instance, and even though COVID's kind of thrown the data because not everybody has as many jobs as they used to, some do, some don't, excuse me. But in this case, City of Brampton, their most recent goes back to September. But let's say you ran into a company and you saw a position there last week and it's not on Connected now. And just because it's not on Connected doesn't mean it's still not available. You just simply would click on View All Jobs, go to the company's employer profile page. From there, you'd go click on there, and then you go to the applicant tracking system where all the jobs are located. Also, you just want to take a look for this insignia that you have here with the hand. Every company that has that, that's an organization. That's an Equitech insignia, a partner in inclusion. It matches up with our outreach partners, which ACCESS is one that has one. So everybody that has that insignia has a diversity outreach strategy. So just in case you see that, it's not an award or anything. It's kind of a secret spy decoder ring thing, you know, that we can all like, so you can see that, oh, this is an organization that's trying to attract you. So that's something. So from here, you would simply apply and search for all the jobs. So as you can see and understand, Equitech is just an aggregator, okay? Now, unlike traditional aggregators, though, that mine the internet, we mine community organizations like ACCESS. We work with about 1,300 organizations across the country that provide employment programs like the one you're in. So this is the only way that they get to see Equitech. Anybody can come to Equitech on the website to be part of our broadcast. This and how we push out the jobs through our feed, that's through our association with those organizations like ACCESS. Now, if you want to receive the broadcast, and I'll show you how we distribute it in a minute, but this is all you need to do under the job seekers, is just put your name and your email address. That's all we need, okay? And we have to ask you for that because that's part of Canada's anti-spamming laws. You have to give us permission to be part of our distribution. You can unsubscribe anytime you want. Okay, you don't have, anytime you feel it's not necessary or find a job or whatever the case may be, but we need to get your permission to send it to you. So that's how our site works. You can see it's really easy to do. And I'm going to go back to show you our PowerPoint again. And as Sonia said, we can talk about questions in a few minutes. So how do we distribute the employment opportunities and how are you going to get them? We have two methods. The first method is we're sending out a MailChimp for all intents and purposes here on the left-hand side. And you'll get this every single morning. It'll have a link that'll take you back to the connected feed where the newest jobs are, as well as we also feature what we call a hot job. It's a spotlight job from every one of the clients. So this is an initiative, I guess, a position that every client, a particular position or initiative that they have, they advertise it here when they're trying to attract you. So in this particular case, Stantec, just happens to be Stantec in the example here, was a facilitator of Indigenous services. So they're obviously trying to attract an Indigenous candidate. But you can look at that, you'll see very many organizations that are looking for BIPOC and things in advertising as well here. The second method is a lot of organizations have just started embedding Equitech onto their site. ACCESS hasn't done this yet, but hopefully they will soon, where you won't actually have to go to Equitech. You can just stay on the ACCESS site because we'll be putting the page right there. So we'll be feeding these jobs directed to ACCESS. So either way, the same way, just the way you looked at, you'd still be getting the broadcast, but you'd simply be able to find the jobs at ACCESS. But from right now, you're going to have to come to Equitech to see the connected feed there. All right? So enough about me, enough about diversity, and enough about our Equitech site. It's very easy how you find it. Let's talk about applicant tracking systems and applying online, okay? What I'm going to talk to you about, okay, and show you today is only meant for you to do to an online application process, either a job board or an ATS, okay? Excuse me. Do not do this when you have somebody's name, okay? Why do companies use ATSs? Well, again, you can thank the internet. Remember I told you the internet changed everything back in the, I guess in the mid-90s, when they started using the internet for recruitment advertising. The internet created so much noise, and you can see it now. You get bombarded with job postings on social media and things. Well, the reverse is the same for companies. If I put a job posting out for an information architect, I'm going to get about 3,500 resumes in the space of a day. for an information, everything from an information architect to an interior designer, because people don't read anymore. They just sort of screen through it and go, oh, or they're using algorithms. If you know, depending on your LinkedIn package, your LinkedIn could be applying for jobs that you don't even know you're applying for. But you see, the internet creates all this noise. And as you can imagine, a human resources person, for those of you who are in human resources, you know what I'm talking about, reading resumes. For those of you who haven't, trust me, you can't read 3,500 resumes in a day. Okay, so the only way to screen through this is you have to use the technology to actually counteract the technology to screen. Okay, and nobody bothered to explain this to the job seekers and what's going on. Why is the technology? What's it looking for? How's it screening? How come your resume isn't getting through? You know, what happens to your resume when you submit it to an ATS? Well, what's going through is it's looking for key characters, key words, or questions that you're answering. Okay, so it's looking for specific items that you need to put in your application process. Okay, so when you when you go to an applicant tracking system, okay, be sure to follow the application instructions, okay, and complete every field, okay. Now, this is where it gets a little difficult for you. When you're applying online, this is not the time to send your primary resume, okay. I'm going to say that again. This is not the time to send your primary resume. What you're going to do is create an e-resume that's specifically tailored to that particular job posting. You see, the applicant tracking system isn't at the point where you're going to get a job yet. All it's going to decide to is whether you're going to get a call or not. That's where you are in the grand scheme of things, okay? So it doesn't decide if you're going to get the job, but I guarantee if you don't do it correctly and get through it, I guarantee you will not get the job. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to be able to craft a document that'll be specific to that job posting you're advertising for to get through the ATS. I'm going to show you how that works, and I'm going to give you some examples on how to do that. See, the applicant tracking system, think of it, you probably don't remember, but back in the early 90s when you used to find a job, or even before then, like my first job, we would just go to companies and sit in the human resources department, and the receptionist gives you a clipboard with an application form, and you fill that out, and then you hand it back to the receptionist, and you wait 45 minutes, and somebody comes out to talk to you, okay? And then you give them a resume, and then you start talking to them. Well, that's what the applicant tracking system is. It's just the clipboard and the application form. That's all, okay? So it's not, it's just the beginning of a long process, but you have to get through it, okay? And then, of course, when you're going through the ATS, the last one is be sure to identify the source, because that's a lot more important than what you think, okay? Especially when when you're coming to apply for jobs that have a diversity initiative, they're trying to reach out to you and trying to get your attention. So be sure to identify yourself that, hey, I hear you, I'm part of these underrepresented groups and I'm applying for the job. I'll show you how to do that as well, okay? So think of this when you feed your job posting, okay? Think of it, you're creating an e-resume. You've all heard of search engine optimization. Well, you're gonna do it for yourselves, okay? Your e-resume, you're gonna SEO your full resume, okay? So, and you're gonna do this by following these tips, okay? You follow the rule. First of all, very first thing is read the employment opportunity thoroughly. Read it, take your time. When you find a job, okay, you're looking at 75% of the qualifications, okay? If you've got 75% of the qualifications, that's the go line. If you don't, find something else. And the reason why 75% is the number is because we work in what's called a just-in-time workforce. Companies now, when they create a job posting and they put it on their applicant tracking system, it's pretty well all formatted anyway. But companies, when they put a job out and get authorization to hire somebody, they needed that person probably 2 weeks ago. Okay, so the days of getting a job and, come on, meet the team and go have coffee with everybody and ease your way into the job, those days are over. you gotta like jump in and you better be at race speed by lunchtime, all right? Or you're gonna be behind the whole time. So it's important for you to read the employment opportunities thoroughly, okay? Find out what it is. Take a highlighter, mark it up. When you find this job that you have at least 75% of the qualifications for, you're going to cut and paste it. You're going to take a copy of it and you're going to put it in a Microsoft Word document. That's going to be your working copy, okay? And you're going to mark that up altogether. Okay, so read the opportunity, especially the titles, because the titles of jobs are changing because they want to create more, they want to be more attractive to a wider demographic. So, and I mean things like simple, like men wouldn't wouldn't respond to a receptionist position, but they would be a concierge. You know, call center people are now embedded channel specialists. So read the positions. And people, you know, even though the title might say information architect and you're an interior designer but familiar with architecture, take a breath, calm down. Don't and fire 15 copies of your resume off for the position because that's a good way to get blocked. Make sure you read it, understand it, okay? Which leads me to the next part. Understand the function completely. That goes with the reading. Because then you'll see an embedded channel specialist. Oh, it's a call center position. You know, a good example of this was Capital One of our longtime clients. They had an embedded channel service specialist or embedded channel risk specialist. And they couldn't get anybody applying for the job because the title freaked everybody out. But when you actually read the job, you realize that it's the position of you're the person that's calling somebody at dinner time wondering if they're going to make a payment on the credit card. So take your time, read it, understand the job function completely, especially too when you go to companies like Bell Canada here in Canada. And for those of you on the way, you'll know that's our telecommunication company. But you could spend all day applying for jobs at Bell Canada because they have 15 different business units, all operating as 15 distinct entities. So you might see, an IT position, but it might look similar, but everyone's a little bit tailored towards that particular business unit that they're working for. For you as the job seeker, you have to be able to identify that. Okay, so it's important. Read them, spot the difference. Okay, then the L in rule is for, yes, you've heard it, keywords. Keywords. Oh my God, keywords again. I can't believe it. I know you're sick of it. People are saying, look for the keywords, look for the keywords. I thought I had the keywords. Well, this is the frustrating thing about applicant tracking systems, is it looks for a series of it looks for a series of characters in a certain order. Okay, so you can't deviate at all. You gotta, even if it's spelled wrong, if the only prerequisite for a qualification for a job position was 5+ years with the number 5 and a plus sign looking like this, like 5+ years looking like that, and you put in your resume, I have 10 years of experience, what do you think is going to happen? Naturally, it's going to get bounced because it's looking for 5+ like that. So what you need to do is you need to be able to answer the question with, I have more than 5+ years and a total of 10, da, 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 da. See how you play. When applicant tracking systems first came out, these aren't cheap. For companies don't own them, they rent them. And they can run up as high as $5,000 a month, depending on what bells and whistles they have on it. So basically, when the applicant tracking system started, nobody told job seekers about the keywords. So everybody was, throwing their resumes in thinking that it's an online interview when it really isn't. It's just the application process. And what was happening was people weren't getting through. So companies are thinking like, why are we getting anybody coming through and applying for these jobs? So that's when the ATSs realized that, nobody told you about this. So now they use questions. You see the questions. There's always 10 questions. Do you have 5+ years of experience? Do you have a bachelor's? Do you have this? Do you have that? When you click yes or no, those are the key words. So make sure you take special note and cut and paste all of those keywords, okay? And put them underneath, cut and paste them, drop them in that Microsoft document of yours, okay? And then, you know, you have your working copy, and then you're going to enter them into your resume. One of the things that people will say, I don't know if you've heard this or they told you, but don't use the words in the job posting. I don't know who came up with that idea, but that's definitely wrong. Yes, use the words in the job posting. They're there for you to use. They're asking you, do you have this? And you're saying, yes, I have this. Think of it like when you used to write an essay in school. You get your essay question. Well, that's your job posting. And then your e-resume is your essay. And in your starting point in your e-resume, or like all essays, your starting point is your thesis. And your thesis contains your essay question, right? Right, that's exactly how it works. So your essay question is there, and then you're going to use your work experience and your education to back up your thesis. Just like a real essay, your thesis is a paragraph long, and then the next 5,000 words are spent proving your thesis, not proving the essay question, proving the thesis, right? That's the way you want to think, okay? I have some examples for you. Don't worry, I know it sounds a little confusing. So here's the process. Applying online, you have to break this down into steps, okay? When you find a job on a job board, an applicant tracking system, or through Equitech, okay, your first step is create an e-resume, okay, which I will show you how to do, don't worry. And you're going to, because all you're doing now, nobody's reading your resume at this point. All you're doing is addressing the applicant tracking system. That's what this document's doing. Then once you get through the ATS will get you to the call where somebody will phone you. Ta-da, that's it. E-resume is garbage now. It's done its job. You got to the call, that's perfect. Because at the call part, the person's going to say, or you're going to say, I have a full resume, complete primary resume that I'd like to send you. And then they will give you their personal email address, and you can send it with a business letter and things at that point. That's the step. People seem to forget that. They think the resume at the call point, they put that through instead of the e-resume, and then there's too much information or not the information the ATS is looking for, so your resume never gets through and nobody knows you've even applied, okay? So the call point here, and after the call gets you the interview. The interview, that's exactly what you wanted. And then the interview leads directly to the job. Ta-da! That's what you want to do. But it all starts, whoops, sorry, that's me. It all starts here at the e-resume. That's how you get in the game, especially when you're going through a job board and applicant tracking system. You have to be able to catch their attention, SEO your skills, and you do that with an e-resume. Okay? So now I'm just going to be very general in the format. You can be as creative as you want to a certain extent. When you're doing anything online, bland is good. Watch the bolding, watch the bullet points, no funky fonts, just use internet ready fonts, Arial, Times Home and things. Being as bland as possible is great because then it is consistent, okay? You'll have lots of time to dress up your real resume when you're talking to somebody. Remember, all you are at this point is you're just trying to get through the technology. That's all you're doing, okay? You've seen, we've all got emails that have been in one big paragraph, right? That's an email. Those are email platforms that aren't communicating with each other. You don't want that to happen to your resume, your application, just to turn out to be one big platform, okay? So it's important that you just keep it as bland as you possibly can so it gets through easily. So here you go. Your first paragraph in your e-resume is, like I said, is your profile or your highlights. Consider this to be your thesis. Now, when you meet somebody face to face, you've got 15 seconds to make an impression. You've all heard that. We've heard that all our lives. When somebody sends you something in writing, you've got 17 words. In 17 words, I've made a decision about you, whether I'm going to read on or not. I've already made that decision about you, okay? So you've got 17 words to entice the reader to read on to convince them that you're the person. And you're going to do this in your profile, in that first opening statement. Don't waste your words with things like, I saw your job posting on Equitech, and you're an organization that values diversity. Me, myself, being from the underrepresented groups and feeling I could be a very major, I could be a contribute immensely to your organization, right? Lost me right there. You're going to say, I'm an information architect with more than 5 years and a total of 10 years experience in these platforms. What are you going to do? This is what you do. Remember when I said you're going to, whoops, I'm sorry. What did I do here? Sorry, I went back here. I got to stop touching things. I talk with my hands, as you could probably know. I might even, I'm famous for hanging up on people when I use my Bluetooth too. So anyway, remember understanding the function and listing the keywords and putting them all down. That's what you're going to do. Is usually all job postings have a total of no more than 10 keywords, and you're going to list them, either those questions or not. And then you're going to cram them all together into an opening statement that you're going to use in your profile. Okay, so you take all those keywords, just highlight them all, doesn't matter, and then you're going to formulate them into some cohesive first-person statement. Okay, the whole objective here when you're applying, okay, think of it this way, is just like any SEO, your storytelling. Okay, you're telling them your story, but your story in their words, and their words are on the job posting. So you're using their words to tell your story about how qualified for you are, putting, and using their words into your e-resume format, if that makes any sense to you. So you're going to be taking all the keywords and putting it right there, and you just hit them right in the face with it first thing, right away, the first 17 words to make them read on. If you want to put any sort of fluff in the back, like, self-identifying that you're from an underrepresented group or things like that, put it at the end. And at the bottom there, you can add it. But remember, the first 17 words is you want to capture their attention right away. Then you're going to use your work experience, okay, and your education to back up that thesis. Now, you want to use, you want to feature work experience that's relevant to the job posting. Remember, this is just an e-resume, okay? So only talk about things that you can really, transferable skills that you can apply to this application. If you just had finished a job that actually had nothing relevant to offer from the skills and training for the position you're applying for, don't bring a lot of attention to it, okay? Only bring attention to the skills that you've learned from that position that you could apply to this position, okay? And hopefully it'll be the skills that they're looking for from the job posting, because you're describing it from their words. Try not to overqualify yourself, okay? Remember, this is not the time. You will get the opportunity when they call you to really sell yourself, but right now you're just trying to get the call. It's a very fine line between being perfect and overqualified, okay? So you want to be good, but you don't want to be super good. And the reason being, now you might look at it and think, like, I'm trying to express to the employer that I can do this job with my eyes closed because I'm more than qualified for it. And that's great. I can understand exactly why you want to do it. Putting them at ease, saying, I could easily do this. No learning curve. I'm done it. Not a problem. Okay. As the employer, what I'm thinking when I read that is, I know that it's easier for you to find a job when you have a job. So you're going to get this job, which is kind of beneath you, but you're going to get this because I know in 6 months from now, when you land a gig which is more appropriate to your skills, you're going to leave me, and I'm going to be in this situation again. So that's what I'm thinking. So be very careful with that, because it's two trending thoughts. Okay, gaps. If you have gaps, don't worry about gaps. Everybody's got gaps. In fact, if you haven't got gaps, they wonder why you haven't got gaps. So you have to explain them, but don't worry about them. You can just simply brief film, with just you just immigrated here to Canada. Everybody knows that's going to take a while for you to get on your feet, and you're going to have to find a job anyway just to make ends meet. It's probably not going to be what you're looking for, right? But everybody has to eat and have to have a living, so that's okay. Everybody's human; they understand. You just don't have to worry about gaps. You just have to be able to explain them. people, knock off work so they can raise their children, so they can take care of their parents who are retiring, who they can't afford to, the kids can't move out on their own, so they're living with their parents and their parents need help. Some people just, like myself, take off for a year and play golf somewhere. So they just want to know that everything was okay. Your work experience, exactly, or sorry, your education, exactly like your work experience, list all the courses, paying specific attention to the ones that apply to that particular job you're applying for, okay? So highlight and focus on the relevant information, try not to overqualify yourself, list it in chronological order, okay? Don't make them do the math, because it's going to present something that they're thinking is you're going to be hiding something somewhere. So make it easy for them to follow. Also, one of the things I like to see too is watch the flow of the job posting. If the job posting talks about work experience first and education second, have your e-resume reflect that, okay? So you're following the flow. Don't, have it saying work experience, education, then work experience, because you're making me go up and down and find that information. You want to be an easy, smooth transition, because eventually when you get through the ATS, this is what happens. When you get through the ATS kicks out a pile of resumes that say, here's a pile that has 10 of the 10 things we're looking for. Here's a pile that has 8 of the 10 things you're looking for. Here's a pile that has 7 of the 10 things you're looking for. Anything after 7 gets dumped. They don't keep it. They might tell you to keep it, but if you can get 3,500 resumes in a day, what do you need to keep it for, right? So what you want to do is you want to make sure that your e-resume flows with that job posting, because the person calling you isn't the person that found your resume. That's usually a junior HR person, okay? So they work for that, they work for that recruiting manager, who basically comes down and says, hey, Will, I need 10 people for that information architect position by 10 o'clock. Go to the ATS and dig up some names for me. Now I'm the guy that's making the decision whether you're going to get through or not. So remember that. You got to be crystal clear and make this as simple as possible, because I was born in Mississauga. I went to school in Mississauga. I was married my high school sweetheart from Mississauga. We live in Mississauga, have kids in Mississauga, and I'm probably going to die in Mississauga. So there's the extent of Will. So now you're addressing him. So you don't want to confuse him too much. You want him to be very, be able to understand your information and understand your story, because you've used my words to tell your story, okay? So let's go on. Let's take a look at, I'm gonna share some e-resumes I have with you. We're gonna have to go through this quick. I've procrastinated. We have 7 minutes left. Okay, so here we go. Here's a job posting from Sun Life of Canada. This is what I've done. I found this on the internet. They were a client of Equitech. They actually stepped off for a little bit as they're realigning their diversity initiative, but they'll probably be back next year. So we took this job posting, and as you can see, I've just carved it up with a highlighter, okay, as I've gone through. And now here's my e-resume that I'm going to submit. It's not my primary resume. This is the e-resume that I'm going to submit to their applicant tracking system, which is a Workday applicant tracking system. And it's going to give me 2 choices. It's going to either say, you can cut and paste a resume or document here, or you can upload it. If I choose to upload it, I'm saving this as a Microsoft Doc or a PDF, and I'm uploading this. I'm not uploading my primary resume, okay? So here we go. In my header, I'm just old school. I put anything out, I put my name and address on it, just in case it gets separated, okay? Name, address. If you're applying to a job in another city, and you're in, like if you're in Toronto and you're applying to a job in Calgary, or probably vice versa, Calgary coming back to Toronto, don't worry about it. Nobody pays for relocation anymore. So they probably know you're coming here anyway. That's why you're applying for the job. 1 phone number, something that you answer, because they will, they don't like leaving messages, but they'll leave you 1 message, but they will not call back. So make sure it's something that you're answering. Email address, something professional, okay, which I'm sure all of you do anyway, not lovemoney@yahoo.com or anything like that. You can put your LinkedIn URL here if you wanted to. That's not a problem, okay? Because you're going to have your full profile on LinkedIn. They're going to go and check you out anyway. Just bear that in mind. If you're social media, they're going to go and look for as much about you that they can find. They want to see what you look like. They want to see if you're going to be a good fit for the culture. So remember that, especially in your picture. Be professional, be happy, don't be grim. You know, people are going to be making a decision whether you're going to fit in with their culture at their organization. So you want to be, you want to be representative of that as much as possible. I know Sonia would be able to help you with that. I also put a reference to the position, again, just in case it gets separated. Okay, and now, here we go. Here's my thesis. A performance analyst with more than 5 years experience monitoring, analyzing key performance indicators and the success of past marketing campaigns. I'm proficient in developing a marketing strategy through strong understanding of the competitive landscape of industries. I also include sales campaigns, design management, proven track record of delivering successful campaigns, outcomes by understanding the market segment under new and untapped opportunities. Where did I get that? I got it from here. I used every one of their words and I put it into that statement. I can do all this. I just used their words to do it. I looked at my past experience. I read all this and I said, hey, I could do this. I did this here. I did this here. But I used their words, okay? Now, I'm going to use my work experience to back up this thesis. But in this particular case, 2018 to current, okay, I had various contract assignments because I immigrated to Canada with my family. I don't need to tell them I worked at Amazon or I was an Uber driver or did things, because there was nothing relevant in those years that I could bring to the table to help me for this position. So I'm not bringing a lot of attention to it, okay? But in my next positions, this is where I got all the experience to back up this thesis. And now in here, especially here, when I'm describing, okay, what I did at the company and the successes at the company, which was Bank of India, I'm using the words that are here to describe that. Again, as much as it as I possibly can. I'm trying not to, I'm not putting in content that, as much content that isn't in the job posting, okay? So you have to put in some because you have to make the statements here. But I'm not adding anything new. I'm using as much of the job posting as I possibly can in my description of my work experience. Same thing with my next position. And you're going to describe 2 or 3 anyway, right? So I'm doing the same thing because it has positions, or it has skills that I can transfer into this new position. Again, using their words. My education, now, I didn't go into detail, but you get the idea. I would have done the same thing with my education. But you can do things like this, for instance, if you're concerned with in this particular case, the ISC in Bangalore, you want to make sure that the recruiter understands the reputation of the school. I use the little Google ranking that they have here and stuff. There's nothing wrong with putting a wave out to the alma mater at that when you're doing this, just to give them a little feedback, to let them know that this isn't Bob's online university, okay? So this is a reputable school, letting them know. And then the same thing with financial services and any training that I did for my previous jobs, I would list them again in their words. Straight, you see how this is working. And then the technical skills and things, I might have more, but I've listed theirs. And you could say, and more. You can actually even say at the bottom, if you wanted to, or even up here under your LinkedIn profile, you can say my full profile, my full resume is available upon request, or my full 100, whatever you want to call it, my full CV, my full primary CV, whatever the case may be, okay, is available upon request, to let them know that there's more information. That's perfectly fine, okay? And then this isn't going to be more than 2 pages at the most. I'm going to cut and paste this and drop this into their applicant tracking system. Cover letter or not to cover letter, okay? When you put a cover letter in, okay, be sure, okay, put the, like the keywords, where do they go? They go in the resume for sure, because the resume gets checked first. That's what they read. The cover letter they read secondary. So you can actually expand on this thesis in your cover letter and add a little more information. If you're going to add anything, add it in your cover letter at that point. Don't add it into the resume part, okay? And then just expand on that, and that could be your cover letter if you wanted to. But again, you know, you're just giving them the facts, because all this is going to do is give you a call. Okay, I'm 1 minute over. I want to show you one more. This is from Wood, another client of art, engineering organization in the energy district, energy industry. So as you can see, same thing, cut and paste. I'm just cutting, I'm just drawing like a banshee all over this. You can see I'm coloring in like a 2-year-old with his crayons. And I'm just covering this up, okay? And here's my e-resume, okay? Same thing, my address, my email. You could put your LinkedIn URL plus my resume is available upon request at that point, referencing the job position. And again, now this is a little different. And this is where I told you before, you know, you have complete license to do whatever you think is creative. I just wanted to give you a basic, you know, a basic kind of format you can follow. So in this particular case, because it's such a technical position, I could end up writing a thesis that was like 4 paragraphs long, which you don't want to do, right? So I opted to use their words right here with more than 5 or 10 years experience and go to a point form format. But you'll see what I added here. 5 to 10 years of global integrity management experience from the University of England, degree in mechanics. Okay, so global. So what I put in here, and some people stumble with this, with job seekers, especially when they're new to the country, you're new to Canada, they stumble with companies thinking like, oh, you don't have any Canadian experience or getting any Canadian experience. Canadian experience, we're like we're a speck on a windshield, Canada. You know, what you want to do is you want to tell them, yeah, I'm very familiar with Canadian experience because I have global experience. I know all the Commonwealth, I know Australia, I know the UK and everything. I'm a person of the world. You have to understand where you are and who you are, you know, and be proud of that. What you're doing, leaving your life and coming to Canada, that takes a lot of courage. So you should be proud of that. Don't let anybody, don't ever think that that's you know, like that's going to put you behind the 8 ball, as it were, because most of the people in this country that you're talking to haven't even left their own province, you know? So for you, you know, this country was built on immigration, right? So you're the new voyageurs. You're the new blood that's coming into the country. You are people of the world. You are you have global experience. Yes, I'm very familiar with Canadian experience. I have global experience. I've done this all over the world. You know, I have extensive experience on an international scale. So you play that up. That's something to be proud of and bring it to their attention, because then they're going to look at it differently, as opposed to, well, do you have Canadian experience? And you thinking, well, no, I don't. Just like, yeah, I've got global experience. I'm very familiar with this. But, you know, because Canada really, directly or indirectly, every company in Canada should be dealing in a global marketplace. Because if they're not, if this is an organization that's only going to stay in the Canadian market, well, you might not have worked there. You might not want to work there because they might not be in business in 2 years, okay? Companies, you know, if they're not in the global market, they need you to help them get there if they're going to survive, all right? So they should be there. Even my company is indirectly attached to the global market. Look, I'm working with you. Some of you are not even in this country yet. So, I mean, this is exactly the extent of it, okay? So play this up. This is a big win on your side. This is a skill. Not a lot of people are going to, you know, would have the courage to take on what you're doing, okay? And then you can see, instead of going to paragraphs, I went for the point form profile to complete it, which is fine, you know? And then my education, the same. And you do the same thing. You add to it at the bottom, okay, as it pertains to the skills, transferable skills. If it doesn't require it at this point, don't talk about it. Don't bring a lot of attention to it unless you absolutely need to. Okay, and as you can see, I did the same thing, various work contracts and then the different positions. So you get it from there, okay? So the important thing, I'm 5 minutes late, so the important thing is, you know, you're applying to the technology. Give them what they want. Tell them just the facts. Tell them exactly what they're looking for, because, you know, this is how we're going to, I just want to go back to the PowerPoint again. You know, so this is the process. Remember, all you're doing is your e-resume to the call. That's all it is. That's all it does. That's where you want to gain. That's where you want to get in. Okay? Be sure to follow the rule. Read the employment opportunity thoroughly. Understand the job function completely. Get as much information as you can. List the keywords, 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 keywords. That's the key to getting through the technology. Okay? Enter them into your e-resume. Okay? And then submit it to the applicant tracking system. Follow the application's instructions thoroughly, complete everything. You'll run into some organizations have a self-identification questionnaire. That's basically to determine their diversity initiative. Okay, they'll ask you, if you are a member of these underrepresented groups, could you fill this out? It's completely voluntary, and the people seeing it have nothing to do with recruitment. It has everything to do for the company to determine if they're, you know, remember, they're trying to attract Indigenous people, people with disabilities, visible minorities, women, internationally trained professionals, youth, mature, LGBTQ2, and Canadian veterans. If they don't ask you to self-identify them, they don't know if they're reaching them. So it's more of a scorecard for them. They'll wonder, why aren't we getting enough women applying for the positions that we have? Oh, I forgot one thing I wanted to show you before. Sorry about that, Sonia. Also for the, we have a cover letter. Sonia has a copy. She has a leave behind that you can do this. If you, for a cover letter template, for some individuals, if you're not comfortable with your self-identification or don't know what to say or things like that, this is a template that you could use. And it just basically has a paragraph from me on it saying, this candidate's coming from your diversity outreach strategy. This is what we do. If you have any questions about how this diversity strategy, don't talk to the candidate, call me, okay? I'll tell you about it because your company paid us to do this and I'll be more than happy to explain it to you again, okay? And then you can just put in your cover letter there. You could use that until you're comfortable being able to say what you want to say to self-identify. Use it or don't use it. We just put it there because, especially with people with disabilities, they have a tough time facing, I don't want to tell companies that I'm disabled, and you don't have to, but you want to be able to identify that you're from that designated group, and this is the way they can do it. So that's it. And I say bid you all a fond adieu. I know I went a little longer, 8 minutes longer. I'm getting it down, not as bad as last time. You know, hopefully these are some tips that'll help you through the application process and you can secure some good employment. When you fill out an e-resume, you read it, or your employment counselor, give it to your partner or your friend or a colleague or employment counselor. It should leave them with the impression that they want to call you to get more information. That's the objective of it, okay? So, if you have any questions, now would be the time to do it. And there's a bunch here, I see. Does Equitech still work if you're Canadian born? But yes, does, absolutely. Yes, being of South Asian descent and female, yes, absolutely. You see, if you, to basically, you know, Equitech is open to everybody, okay? Remember, the whole reason for diversity is find the best and the brightest, okay? And that's, it includes all of the demographics, you know, in Canada, all those little minority groups that I told you about. So by all means. And for a definition of visible minority in Canada, it basically equates down to anybody who's non-white. Okay, if you Google employment equity and look at the designated groups, it'll give you an expression there. So if you're concerned about that. Do you think there's an unemployment problem in Canada after COVID-19? No, there is not an unemployment. Well, yeah, it depends on the industry. If you're in the hospitality industry, because there are certain sectors of the economy which are going to take terrible beatings and not come back. A lot of them are the gig economies, like, you know, waiters and things, because a lot of the restaurants are not going to be able to survive. But the hotels and the bars and things like that are going to come back, and they will come back if you're in that. As far as corporations goes, no, they're still in a situation. In fact, now it's getting to the point now where companies are starting to realize this working from home is actually a good thing, because they're now looking, for instance, I just read an article that the banks are looking at reducing their office space by 20%, which means now they can stop laying people off just to make money for their shareholders when they can now, you know, reduce the cost for the office space, because it's something ridiculous like $250 a square foot in the city of Toronto. That's a lot of money there. Hi, I work in Vancouver Island, providing employment advice. I'm wondering if Equinet is suitable for this region. Yes, we have lots. We're across the country. Why don't you, Alex, why don't you drop me a line, okay, at go to equitech.ca and drop me a line, and we will have a chat. I have lots of organizations in BC that get the Equitech feed that we work with, and we've been working for a long time. Why do you... Okay, if I'm a woman from visible minority, should I opt for women or visible minority under the diversity options? Okay, you can do either. I mean, don't cut hairs. All you have to do is you don't have to identify what group. You can just simply say, I'm a member of the underrepresented groups. Your name is going to give it away anyway. Okay, so you don't have to worry so much about it. The most important thing is being able to say, hey, I'm from the demographics you're trying to reach. Oh, here's a good question. Sorry, Lim, I should have done that for you. No. Can we search for jobs using a title? The unfortunate thing is because we are a feed, we are not a job posting. So the only sourcing, because we work with 100 different companies with 100 different applicant tracking systems that give us 100 different feeds. So the only way we can filter is using common denominators from the feed. And the only thing that's common is the name of the job, the hyperlink, the location of the job, and even the location isn't always the same, and the job posting and the closing date. So those are those 5 things that we can only filter on. I know it's a little bit of work, but that's your job right now. It's your, to find work, it takes work, and that's what you're doing right now. When you search, you can search by location, but I would start off using province. But you'll see if you go down to a couple of the companies, some will say Ontario ONT, some will say ON. So, it's different all the time. So you'll have to try different variations or just screen through. Varuni, does ATS track for different verb forms? I don't know. That's splitting hairs as well. You know what? There's JobScan. You've heard of JobScan. Use JobScan. JobScan will show you exactly what the ATS sees because it's showing you. That's exactly what they see on the other end too. So put your e-resumes into JobScan, and if you can have most of it show up, that's a good job. If you only have 2 or 3 words show up, don't send it to an ATS because it's not going to work. Okay. Managing and managed. I would, again, try not to vary. My gut feeling is try not to vary too much from it. But if you have to, you have to for it to make sense. Without my phone, how can I match all the keywords? Well, your full resume is talking about your entire life history. Your e-resume that we're doing. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm the only one reading this. Without my full resume, how can I match? How can I match all the keywords? Okay, your full resume is your complete critique of your entire life. Your e-resume, okay, is going to have all the keywords in it, and the keywords are going to match up to your work experience and things. I hope I showed that to you. I think it was 135. I think in my examples, I answered that. How do we navigate ATS when we organize their own website to apply?
William, we're losing volume.
I'm sorry? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Okay. So anyway, I'll yell. How do we navigate an ATS? Let me go. Oops. In resume sections, we should put the e-resume in our, okay. So if you're talking about an ATS, a company that does not have an ATS, but says send your resume to jobs at ABC company, okay, do not do this, okay? Send them, you've skipped that you skipped that e-resume process. You're now jumping directly to the call part, so don't do this, okay? If they don't have an ATS, they're usually a smaller organization and it's a little more personalized. So write your business letter and send your, at that point, you could send your full primary resume at that point because you don't have to worry about keywords. Many times we're open with multiple positions of the company career page. It's okay to apply for multiple positions. Yes, as long as you're not applying for the same position multiple times. But like I said, you could be at Bell Canada, you could apply for the same 15 different jobs at 15 different units. Absolutely fine, there's nothing wrong with that. Do we restart the words, but remix it in our own words or copy and paste? Whatever's comfortable. The whole most important thing is you want to SEO as much as possible. So I'm going to take one more question. That's okay. Thanks for all the, in your resume example, I saw no numerical achievements, reducing cost by 80% and stuff. Okay, I didn't put it in there because it wasn't called for on the e-resume, but again, I was just giving you a general example. If you want to put that in as an achievement, by all means, go ahead. I was just giving you just a basic template to give you an example of that. But like I said, you can be as creative as you wanted to. So if you wanted to add that, that's fine as well, okay? If it, just remember though, you have to be sure to put the content that the ATS is looking for on the resume, for sure. If you want to, throw a little more in that you feel would help, that's fine too, okay? So it's 1/4 now. I hope this is okay, and I hope you all enjoyed yourself. Sonia, do I need to say anything more?
No, thank you so much. Is it okay if I share the last few slides?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So thank you again so much. I know some people might still have questions. You can email them to me and I can help get them answered for you. And our next webinar coming up is actually tomorrow, called Newcomer Job Seekers Frequently Asked Questions by Inclusive Recruitment Leader Vivian Lee at RBC. So she'll be answering your mostly asked questions because she actually has a lot of sessions that she's done and there's always been not enough time to answer questions. So she will be answering them live. And as I spoke about our bridging programs being online, please take advantage and sign up for it. And check out our other webinars for the rest of the month, and you can register just like you did for this one today. And we also have ACCES, which is our e-resource center. So you can go to our website and click on ACCES on the right, and you can see all of the resources that we have related to job search. And you can practice your English conversation skills by joining our Talk English Cafe that's pretty much being held every day at different times. So you can access that as well, accessemployment.ca/Talk English Cafe. And if you'd like to start your job search, just call into your closest ACCES location and an employment consultant will be happy to help you with your job search. And if you are pre-arrival, so you're aiming to land in Canada soon, you can take advantage of our pre-arrival program. Email cec@accessemployment.ca for more information. And follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook to see what's happening on ACCES. And please do fill out the survey at the end of the webinar. Thank you so much, William, for joining today. And thank you all for watching and submitting your questions as well.
Good luck, everyone.
Bye, everyone.